The cake itself took me 6.5 hours to make in total. That was from mixing it, baking it, buttercreaming, everything. And I just wanted to time myself really for a 2-tier cake because people keep asking me how long it takes me. So this video really is going to be fast and slow in parts and then the end result. The cakes have just come out of the oven now. I'm going to give them about 10 minutes just to cool down, and then I shall cut them into 3 and I will be back. Okay, these have had about 5-10 minutes to cool, so I'm going to go ahead and cut them. That out of the way. I wait until I can touch them before I cut them. I've got my 3-way cutter here, which will cut them into 3. I'll just check the sizing on it, make sure it's just going to take the top off, but cut the cake into 2 for me, which it will. That's one cut there. Take that top piece off, I don't need that. Kids will eat that later. Now you've got to be very careful with this because they're really still very hot inside. So I tend to just slide them on. As you can see, I think there's steam coming up. Yep. That's 2. Got my other one here. This one I'll have to pick up by hand or I'll get bits all over the floor. I'll just put that like that. I love these little things because I got them off eBay. I think they were a couple of quid. Oops. Dear me. Move that over a bit. Don't want that to break anymore. And they're great because they fit on top of each other. So it saves, if you've only got a small kitchen like I have, it saves a lot of room. Go to my next one. It is a bit fiddly to get it on there, but it's well worth it. If you don't have room in your kitchen, just stack them up. I think they were about £4 on eBay, something like that, and you got 3. So I ended up buying 2 lots so that I could just stack them up whenever I need a big cake doing. It saves room in your kitchen and it saves a lot of time as well. Right, I will come back when these cakes are cooled. I thought I'd show you this bit. While the cakes are cooling, I like to get the little board that's going to go under the 8-inch cake ready for the cake and the buttercream as well. So what I've got here is an 8-inch board, or I think it's just above the 8-inch. So I'll just take one of these cakes. These are nearly cool now. Yeah, it's about a 9-inch board is this. So I want to be taking off all this excess. If obviously I haven't got an 8-inch board, thin one, so I'm going to take off what I can on this. I'll take it most probably down to a 7-inch because you always get that slight overlap, and I don't like that on a cake. So I'll speed up this little bit of a process for you and then I'll be back with you. Now I'll get on with the buttercream and I'll speed this process up as well. I'm doing a 10 and an 8-inch cake, so I'm going to need enough buttercream to cover both of those. So what I'm doing is 1,100 grams of icing sugar and 525 grams of butter. So here goes speed up time. I'm going to put this in the microwave for 1 minute on high, just to melt off the butter a little bit. Took about 1.5 minutes because it's so big. What you want to see is just it dipping in the middle. So it's the butter that's just about melting but not melted, because if you melt it too much it'll curdle the buttercream. I'll speed this process up again. As you can see, the buttercream is nice and fluffy and it's all over me. You want it all integrated, and I've just broke my mixer doing this yet again. But anyway, now you've got the buttercream ready, it's time to check the cakes and see if they're cool enough to buttercream. Yep, my cakes are cool enough, so this is how I set up my board. I have a non-stick mat on my turntable, and then I get a ganache plate, which is there. I get my non-stick greased paper, whatever you call it. I just tear off a section, make sure it's going to fit. Yep. Then I get my Easy Bake spray and just spray over the ganache plate. This will stop it from sliding. Make sure it's sealed down. I go around the outside with my scissors because this is going to go into the fridge when I'm done. So I want it taking up as little space as possible in there. So I just go around and I trim off the edges so that I know that when I put it in the fridge it's not going to take up too much room, and plus it won't bend in on itself and ruin what I've done with my buttercream. So that's that there. Make sure it's flat and no bubbles in it, because you want a smooth top on your cake. And now what I do is I use the bottom of my cake to go on there. I'm doing the 10-inch cake first. So plenty of buttercream on. Got the spatula upside down. And just spread that out. Try and get it as flat as you possibly can. You will need a spirit level if you want your cakes to be perfectly flat and symmetrical. I'll just get my bottom of my cake, which, as you can see, it's got the perfectly flat side. I'll just check that. Make sure it's all buttercreamed up to the edge, which it is all the way around. Add next layer of buttercream. Try and get it as flat as you can possibly get it. So just spin your wheel around with your arm in the same place and it will make it quite flat. Then get your next layer and put that on. Make sure it's meeting all the way around so as you've got no overhang anywhere. And this is where you need your spirit level. I have this one that I use for cakes only, and I just check it. As you can see, the bubbles in the middle there. Spin it round, bubbles in the middle again, and again. Bubbles slightly to this side here, so I'm just going to press that down slightly with my hand. A little bit more. Bubbles in the middle, and just check the last bit. As you can see, the bubbles in the middle. So I can carry on with the buttercream in. A bit more at this side, and then that should be okay. At the top part, this is going to be the bottom of your cake. Check the level again. Making sure it's in the middle, which it is. That's perfect. And then all you have to do then is go around the sides of your cake. which this is hard to do because I'm right-handed, but I will do my best so as you can see what I'm doing. Put plenty on. Don't worry, you'll be scraping it back off anyway. And make sure you get right up to the top edge and right down to the bottom edge. Putting plenty on. Don't be frightened. Don't think, oh my god, I'm using too much buttercream here. I haven't charged enough. You will be scraping it back off. Just make sure you can't see the cake poking through underneath. I only do one layer of buttercream on my cakes. I don't do a crumb coat or anything like that. Just take the excess off the bottom bit there. And then with the side scraper, which I got this one from eBay, and it's quite a tall one, which as you can see it goes quite above my cake. So if I'm doing wedding cakes, it's ideal. And just take your scraper, keep your arm in the same position all the way around. As you can see, I've not put enough at the top here, so I will have to cover that a bit more. And then I'll go around with my side scraper again. And once you're happy, there's still a little bit more that needs putting on there. Just go around this bit. My cat's come in the kitchen. Just pause this a second while I let her out. Cat out. Oh dear. I'll just go over these bits and put a little bit extra there. And just go around with my side scraper again, just to make sure it's got it. Yeah, that looks fine. Now all you have to do is just go around the top, pulling it from the side inwards, making sure it's pretty level, because when you turn your cake over you don't want those bits hanging down because it can make your cake uneven. Check that bit. There we go. So that's one cake done there. I'm going to speed it up for the other one because you've already seen me do it. This I will put in the fridge now for about half an hour to an hour before I cover it in fondant, and I will be back to show you that one after I've shown you the other one at high speed. Right, my cakes have been in the fridge now for about half an hour. I've managed to tidy my kitchen, do the washing up, add a cup of tea and play about on the internet. I've got a 1 kg of fondant here. This is going to cover the 10-inch cake and hopefully it'll cover the 8-inch as well. And I've got a little block that I had left over from covering the board. I generally do the boards while the cakes are in the oven, so it saves me a lot of time, and then I put them underneath the fan in the front room and they dry out enough for the cakes. So here I'm kneading the fondant ready. That should be soft enough, no cracking. That's what you need to look for. If there's any cracking, keep going, because it'll crack on your cake. Once you don't see any cracking and it feels soft enough and pliable, then you can start to roll it out. Just flip it over. Now I do use quite a lot of icing sugar. This is just the way I do it. And I have a massive rolling pin, as you can see. So far this has took me just short of 4 hours. That's from mixing the cakes to buttercreaming, and all the setting times and cooling times and cooking times is involved in that as well. The most I've ever done in one day, which I know I'll get that question at some point, is 9 cakes, and that was I think it was a 5-tier cake and a 3, something like that. So just keep rolling out your fondant, keep twisting it around, just roll it forwards and then back again, and then turn it over. So just wrap it round your rolling pin, pick it up, flip it and do it again until you get it to the right thickness. I do mine quite thin because nobody likes a big mouth of fondant, do they? Wrap it over like that and I'll get my cake. Right, I've got my cake here and it's upside down, so you want to flip it the other way. So I've got a ganache plate here. Ooh, it's going to be a tight fit, is this one. And just flip it, put it on your work surface, take off the wrapper. I'm going to have to shift this over a little bit. I might need to put it on my bigger plate actually, because I haven't got much of an overlap here. Yeah, I think I will. So I'll just do that. I'll pause the camera for a minute. I've put that on a bigger ganache plate. And then I'm going to put my icing over. Try and pull this towards me. Yep. So with all these folds here, just spread them out. Pull the camera back a bit, you might be able to see it better. Make sure your top is flat and there's no bubbles in it. Just push them to the side before you seal the edges. Go around your edges, top edges. Oops. Sorry about that. Just go around your top edges, making sure them are sealed to the cake before you try and get to the bottom part. Pull out your pleats and push it in. And then give it a little rub. Hopefully the heat of your hands will go through the icing and it'll seal the cake, icing to the cake, should I say. Just keep going round until you know that it's sealed. Then take your smoother and just go around that outer edge, making a line. This is your cutting line, the inside line. Then get your pizza cutter and go around that inside line. Pull the excess fondant away and put that in a bag for later use. Give it a little knead first, and that should be enough for your 8-inch cake as well. Just go around it with your smoother, make sure it is definitely attached to that cake before you flip it back over again. Believe it or not, I used to hate fondant when I first started. I nearly threw in the towel a couple of times because I could not get to grips with the fondant. And I hear this so much on the cake decorating page from people saying, I hate this fondant, it's not going right, it keeps cracking, it's doing this, it's doing that. I was the same. Right, so once that's as you like it, get your ganache board, which I have just shoved it in the sink for washing, so I'll just go wash that and pause the camera for a minute. I've decided to put it on top of a cake board because it's bigger than the ganache plate and I didn't want to have to keep swapping it over. Put a little bit of icing sugar on the top of your cake, this will stop it from sticking to your board. Put your board on top and then carefully flip it over, so firm pressure with your hand right in the centre of the cake and centre of the board underneath as well. Now you've got to be quick with this, so you flip like that. Take your ganache plate off. Now it's upside down again. And now you just go around your cake, and if you watch here you'll see the icing moving down to the cake board. Once it gets to the cake board, you know you've got that perfect edge. So just keep going round. If this starts to stick, just put a touch of icing sugar on there and away you go again. I go through so much icing sugar in summer because it's so warm in here, even with both doors open. And just keep going around your cake till you know it's met at the bottom of the board. If you get a little bubble like I've got there, take a little pin, pop it in and smooth it, just with a light finger touch into the centre. Don't worry about the hole, that'll cover up. Just keep going round. another air bubble there. Alright, that looks about it. I'll just check it. I'll go around and make sure it's all even and met the board. You don't need a lot of pressure on your cake while you're doing this. It tends to just find its own way down. Just check it again. Yep, that looks perfect. Now when I flip it back over, this is the bottom cake. So this is going to go on the main board now. So I'll just pause the camera for a second. I've got my little bit of leftover buttercream here, which I'm going to put some on the top of the cake, if I can get to it, that is. You must put a layer of something in between. If you're doing taller cakes than a 2-tier, I'd advise you to put in royal icing. It's a bit more sturdy than buttercream. Buttercream tends to melt and it can slide. Right, so I've done that part. I've got my bottom board here, which I am going to flip over onto my cake. Try and get it as central as I can possibly get it. So I'll look underneath. Needs to go over a bit that way. That looks about right. Push it down slightly, not too much. And this is the moment of truth. Flipping it back over to its right way. So hand again on the top like that and flip. Right, so that looks about right. Just move it over a little bit more. And then what you do to seal these bottom edges is just do the same again with your smoother, like you did for the upside down part. And just go around it, sealing these edges down onto the cake board. And there you have your first tier. Now for your second tier, you need to do this before you cover your second tier. So get the tin that you used for your second tier, place that on the top of your cake, making sure it's even at both sides. So just eyeball it really. Once you're happy with that, make an indent by just rolling your cake tin just around on that, so it leaves an indent on the top of your cake, so you know where to put your dowels. So next process is your dowels, and I use these. They're like plastic skewer type things, and I think I got 1,000 off eBay from China for a couple of quid, but these are brilliant. You can stack loads of cakes on these. So you just, where your indent is, go at one side, poke it through, Put your fingers there so as you know where the line is, and cut it and place that in there. Do the same at the opposite side. With it being a 10 and an 8-inch cake, you only need 4 dowels. And then opposite side again. And then that side. If you want to, you can put one in the middle. I don't generally use a middle one, but I will do on this occasion. If you're going any higher with your cakes, say a 3-tier, then I would put, no, I would say a 4-tier. A 4-tier, then I would put another section in there. So you'd have 4, 5, 6, 8 on the outside and 1 in the middle. So it'd be 9 altogether. Anything higher than that. Right, so we've done that part. I'm going to put this to one side. I don't want to put the buttercream on there just yet until I've covered the other one and I'm ready to put it on. So I'll be back in a second. Now, I've just done a quick clean up and I'll get cracking on this second cake now. I want to stick this board to the cake. So that's that. And you want to put your shiny part on the top. Make sure that's firmly on there. And then move this to one side and get your other cake. And on this you want to put some buttercream. And I generally put the buttercream where you put the stakes in. So flip it over and then get 2 fingers under it and just drop it onto your cake. Use your smoothers to put it where you want it. Make sure it's central. Which that isn't too bad. Go around again with your smoothers. Get it down as close as you possibly can to that bottom cake. See here, I don't know if you can or not, my fondant's cracked a little bit here. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you how to cover that up. Right, so that's that first part done. Now I need to make some royal icing up. Only a little bit, just to cover this. I'll be back in a minute. Right, I've made some royal icing up here. Now you want it pretty thick. You don't want it too runny. That's just the right consistency. So use the back of your spoon and just slide that on there where that mark is. Maybe a little bit more. So you've got like a blob a bit on there. Don't be frightened. Now get a little bit of water and a brush. Don't have it too wet. And just smooth it out. Be very gentle with this part because you don't want to squash your cake. And once you're quite happy with how it's spread out, just get your finger and just smooth it along. Spin the wheel, don't move your finger. And once you're quite happy with that, get a little bit of icing sugar, dip your finger into it, and very, very lightly smooth it along. Once you've done that, go back to your brush and just smooth it out very lightly. I'd let that dry off a little bit. And if you want to speed the process up, you can put a little bit of icing sugar on there just to dry it out a little. Take your smoother, put plenty of icing sugar on because you really don't want this to stick. And then got it now, and just keep smoothing it down. Now, and it was too thick, so I've cut it in half. So first of all, I'm going to dampen around the cake where I want the ribbon to go. And I'm just going to place that on. Oops. Try and place it on straight. Make sure it's stuck. And just go around the cake. Make sure it's level. Slightly up there, so I'm going to have to take it back and move it down. It's better. Once you reach the other side, cut it off a little bit longer than the other one, and with your royal icing, what you've got left over, just put a little blob under that. This will just seal it onto the other ribbon. Just put it around with your hand to make sure it's all right, and then do the next one. Which I've got my pink-ish. And I will start there. Now this says that it's self-adhesive, but it doesn't really stick very well, so I tend to glue it. Royal icing underneath that, just to make sure it doesn't come apart, because it normally does. Just make sure it's joined right, and that's that part done. Right, I've just put the name on this cake. Now I'm going to spray this with the vodka and pearl sheen mix that I use. Any bits that are a bit stubborn, just give them a wipe over with a brush. Right, for this cake I did some flowers. Did these yesterday, so they've been setting overnight. I've done another YouTube video on how to make these sort of flowers, so I didn't think it was necessary to put it on here. I've done a mixture of white and pink, which I'm just going to place on the cake. So I'm going to dampen the cake down where I want them to go. Now I'm just going to place each flower on the cake where I want the flowers to go.
I'll speed this process up.
Right, that's the cake all done. In total it's took me 6.5 hours. That's from mixing it, cooking it, cooling it, buttercreaming it, everything from start to finish. So in answer to your question, a 2-tier cake takes 6.5 hours. Hope you like it. Please leave me a thumbs up and don't forget to share and also subscribe. I could do with a few more subscribers. Thanks all, see you later.